Morning, everyone. Thank you, Claire, for the intro. Yeah, I'm Chloe. I'm Head of PR and Social Media for MTM. Central to what we're talking about today is authenticity. So when myself, the team, we got together, we started planning this event, and we really wanted to understand what our clients were asking, what they wanted support with, and authenticity was something that kept coming up, so it felt right. Now, of course, authenticity at the heart is about engaging on a real deep level with your customers, truly understanding them. There's many benefits in terms of building authenticity into your marketing. Everything from better conversion, better sales, customer retention, better brand equity. So that's all very well, you know, everyone knows those benefits, but really we're at an interesting place when it comes to authenticity, and that's because of the growth of AI. So we decided to base our talks today on that intersection between authenticity and AI, and we've got some really, really great talks, starting with the talk from Faber and Bex, which I'll hand over to you now. Thank you. No.
It's a nice smooth start, isn't it? It's always good when we're sorting out tech. Yeah, thank you for coming. Some of you might recognize me from the last one, and if you thought that the 30-second talks in between the real talks last time was too much, I'm really sorry because you've got me for 20 minutes today. But the first talk is going to be about authentic foundations and how we can use AI for image generation, copy creation, whether that is ever actually right, and then also how you can use AI for research purposes in terms of media relations. But before we get started, just a quick who we are. My name is Faber. I'm the Senior Social Media Manager here, so I work across a range of clients on social, so whether that's working on their overall content plan, their copywriting, working out where their business should be going in terms of look and feel, tone of voice, all of that good stuff.
Hi everyone, my name's Bex. I've been in PR for nearly 20 years now, and with MTM for nearly 4 years, and I work across a range of maritime marine clients, lots of whatever we get thrown at us, but I'll be talking about this from a sort of PR perspective today, and we'll come on to more sort of communications based, and how you can actually use AI and how you might be able to benefit your businesses from that.
Great. So I think there's probably no one in here that works in marketing or social that hasn't heard the word authenticity about 10,000 times in the past, 6 months. It's sort of become like the new buzzword. Content has to be authentic. Your comms have to be authentic. Everything about your brand now needs to be authentic, which is great, but actually what does that mean? What does that look like? So I think this quote here, to me, puts quite a nice bow on it, that authenticity on social. It means showing up as your true self, because in a world of curated perfection, real connection is what truly stands out. I think this rings true because a lot of the time, brands, whether it is B2B or B2C, have a tendency to only post the super sanitized content. So you're only showing the end result. You're never showing really how we got to that point. You're not showing the people behind the company. You're not showing the people that got you there. Online is obviously a completely digital space, so what people crave the most often is the human connections, the emotional connections that sometimes gets missed. And that is where authentic copy comes in. So I think it's all well and good explaining what authentic copy is, but without sort of some examples, it might fall on deaf ears. So again, you can tell that I have been on LinkedIn, because if you're on LinkedIn, there's very few people in the room that won't have seen Surreal and what they're doing online. For people that don't know, they're a cereal brand where their sort of USP is that they're packed with protein and not very much sugar in it. On paper, that's quite a boring brand. There's so many cereals, how can you be different? Well, Surreal decided that they were going to take the comedic approach. So all of their social media posts, all of their out-of-home marketing, all has a slight sort of comedic hint to it. So if people at the back can't see clearly, this is a billboard at a bus station that says Serena Williams eats our cereal, with a little asterisk next to it saying Serena Williams is a student in London that we paid to eat our cereal, but the point still stands. So it's sort of taken a little jab at all of the celebrity endorsements that you see for brands nowadays. Another one here is that they had a new flavor that was white chocolate and raspberry, and to promote that, instead of just going the usual route of posting a picture of the new box, what they did was they framed it that they had a photo shoot for their new range, and the photo shoot went wrong. So they did the shoot, they didn't realize until afterwards that showing this flavor in different situations might lead to some awkward pictures, which is how we've ended up with a white chocolate and cucumber. So again, it's just a bit of light-hearted social work that you wouldn't necessarily expect from a Kellogg's or a Nesquik that are pretty ingrained in their look and feel. Another brand that's doing it really well is Beyond Meat. So here is a picture of one of their Threads posts from the start of the year, where they were basically saying that it's going to take me about 12 months to get back into track on work after the Christmas break. Someone's replied to that saying, can you let my boss know? Beyond Meat have said, give me that handle, I'll chat to them, I'll get this sorted for you. So this isn't necessarily content that's super authentic, but in their tone of voice and how they're engaging with their consumers, it's very down to earth, it feels very human. If I was a consumer and I was talking to a brand, I want to feel like I'm seen, I want to feel like I'm understood. This is a perfect way to do it. You'll see brands such as like Lidl and Ryanair doing it as well. Ryanair walk very close to the line occasionally, but the point still stands, it feels human. So I suppose the issue with this is when we're talking about authentic content and how we need to be more authentic than ever, is that when we see stats like this, that 90% of all content online is predicted to be AI created by 2025, which is now, how do we sort of balance that? Which is why ads like this from Dove are super, super important and really interesting. On the left here is an AI-generated picture of a woman who obviously has flawless skin, perfect hair, everything is, the idyllic, demonstration. On the right-hand side, you've got a real person. Obviously, this picture has been touched up and edited, but it's not AI-generated. This is a real person with real flaws, if you want to put it like that. Dove are basically framing this as what kind of beauty do we want AI to learn? Is it the super airbrushed? Is it everything is perfect? Or is it actually what real people are like? They've committed that they're never going to use full AI people in any of their marketing going forward, which I think we could probably agree for a beauty brand is the good move, I would argue. And then you've got things like this on the other side, which is an AI-generated video of a train going through an ideal environment. You're showing beautiful locations, everything about that. This is posted commonly in travel groups of people looking for where they want to go on holiday. In theory, that's great. The problem is this is completely AI generated. You've got people that are watching these videos thinking, I would love to go here on holiday. Where can I book? All of these things. You're selling people a dream. And I think the problem is, if this is sandwiched between real content and AI content, you see a bit of an issue, because if you can't trust something, how can you trust anything? And once you start doing these things that aren't real, you sort of leave your followers in a bit of a tricky situation. Who here feels confident in spotting an AI-generated image on social, whether it's in marketing or whatever? Who feels that they're genuinely confident that they'll be able to spot it?
It's quite a lot.
So you're the sometimes. Okay, cool. Sometimes? Sometimes. Cool. And no, you don't know. You're just open. That's great. Social media manager doesn't know. And I think that's the problem, right? That we don't know what to trust anymore. And I will go into a bit more about this, but I think before I do that, I'm just going to do a few slides, basically just giving a quick little backstory to AI in case anyone knows what it is now but don't really know how we've got here. So really, really basic, and please don't ask me any more questions about machine learning because I don't know and it's all very technical. But when you talk about AI, you've got machine learning, you've got generative AI. They're the two main bits. Generative AI is the thing that's responsible for all of these AI images that you're seeing and all of the AI copy. So your ChatGPTs, you're putting in a prompt, it will give you a picture. Your Mid-Journeys, you'll put in a prompt, it will create an image for you. That's what we're looking at there. And I think in terms of how we got here, it's sort of been quite a long journey. The technology is obviously here now. We can't say that it's not. We can't pretend that it isn't, but it is now about how we choose to use it. So when AI first sort of started coming into prevalence in about 2008, all of these issues here were sort of the main sticking points, right? It was people didn't have the skills to use it. There wasn't enough research into what it actually is. The data sets that it learns from didn't exist. It was really expensive to run. People didn't trust it, and no one was really investing in it. Fast forward to 2025, none of these things really exist anymore. Everyone knows how to use it, more or less, to a certain degree. There's been tons more research into it, so we know what we're doing. The data sets have grown and grown and grown, so there's way more than it can learn from now. It's essentially free. Everyone can get a free ChatGPT account if they want. In terms of trust, we're getting there. We're not quite there, but I think more and more people are sort of opening their minds to AI. And also in terms of investment, you've got companies pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into this to further its progression. So all of these issues don't really exist anymore. Pair this with the fact that the technology has really, really grown since about 2008. 2008 is where AI was sort of in its assistant stage, where it could do single tasks. So you'd ask it, what do people feel about this topic, right? And it could give you basic sentiment analysis. Fast forward that till about 2023, you've got in your co-pilot stage. This is where it can start doing image generation and content creation to a fairly decent level. That's where it can be alongside you and it can help you with your work. 2024, last year, where it sort of had its next big boom, that's where AI sort of could become your autopilot. So it's capable of doing multiple tasks at the same time. It can do image generation, it can do content writing, it can do campaign planning, it can give you sentiment analysis, tell you the best times to post, all of that. Super, super scary, right? But that is where we are now. So the technology is here, it's just about how we choose to use it. Up here now are sort of the common defenses of AI. And I'm not here today to tell you that you should never use AI or you should start using AI all the time. I'm just here to present you some facts so that you can then think about it for yourself. So when we are looking at common defenses of AI, these are the ones that come up the most, right? It's time efficient, it's accessible, it's versatile, it's consistent, and it can save you costs because you don't need to hire any of those pesky designers that did all of these slides for us today. The problem with all of that is that on the flip side of it, we have equal problems, right? So this picture here is a Skechers ad that went up in Vogue. This was completely created by AI. You'd never be able to tell because it's so beautiful, right? They did this as a cost-saving exercise and to sort of be able to turn stuff out quicker and quicker. The problem with this is that the ad went live and everyone more or less unanimously hated it, so they had to pull the ad. On top of that, consumers kicked off massively. You've got one down here that essentially says, you don't understand how much I hate AI art. Now I know that you use this, I'm never going to buy from you again. So you've saved money by not hiring a designer, but you've lost the money that you spent getting that into Vogue. You've lost a consumer, and if one's leaving, I'm sure there are plenty others. So have you really saved any money? Probably not. And then you've got shift in employment. So like I said earlier, as it gets better with image generation, there is an argument that designers and people that work in that space are slowly going to become obsolete. I'm not saying that AI isn't creating jobs in other areas, right? It's creating about 120 million jobs on the tech side of things. But if you're a designer who has spent years and years and years creating a niche, and all of a sudden that niche isn't needed anymore because a computer can do a different version of it, then it's a bit of a scary time, right? Also, AI bias. Obviously, AI doesn't come up with its own thoughts. It learns off of other data sets. So if the data sets that it's reading off leans a certain way or skews a certain way or has its own bias, that will be present in anything that it creates, whether it is copy or images. Compared to people that were confident showing and identifying AI images, how many people think that they'd be confident identifying copy that was written by AI? Yes? Okay, so less than half, and I'm guessing the rest are no? Or maybe sometimes? Okay. So I think we've all seen like the classic, the repeating words, the dashes that come up all the time. So they're like sort of, signposts. But the problem is that has sort of changed how we read things, right? Because all of those bits of punctuation, they're all real bits of punctuation. So if I wanted to write something that had a dash in it, or I wanted to put an emoji in it, or I wanted to say, this isn't just this, it's that, all of these common AI things that might have come from my head, all of a sudden, people don't trust what I'm writing. we did a bit of research into the room and on your social posts, and 57% of you in this room use AI to write your copy. So again, not saying that's a good or a bad thing. It's obviously the choice has been made somewhere along the line. But again, just want to present you with the facts. If we look internally a little bit, the UK, the US, and Sweden are the countries in the world that are most likely to not buy from an AI integrated company. So that's obviously not great. So if you're using AI, and I'm not going to ask if you are or aren't, that's not my business, I would have a think about how potentially your customers would feel about that if they found out that you were using AI in your work. Just a question, just one for you to think about. So how can you avoid it? Well, you can avoid it by creating copy that creates worlds. This is Gin Engine, who are an amazing brand. They've created this world full of like Americana and motorsport, and all of their pictures and all of their copy, it all sort of feeds in and deepens that world. This copy here really hacks the format of what we're told copy should look like. It's repetitive, it's all capsed up, it's too many emojis, but for the brand, it works. AI can't do that. You can create copy that's funny. Everyone, I'm sure, is sick of hearing about Duolingo, but people talk about them for a reason, because they are really good. They're using a Severance meme here, essentially. Everyone, if you don't know, Severance is a really trending TV show at the moment. AI, again, is not going to be able to keep up with online trends in the same way that a real person can. So that's another way that you can do it. And another one is you can create copy that's authentically you. This is copy for Mercedes-Benz. AI will be able to write you copy for a car brand. It's going to be super generic. It's going to be boring. What it's not going to be able to do is understand what makes people emotionally connect with your brand. It's not going to understand your heritage. It's not going to be able to understand what makes you you. So, what is AI really good for? Brand perception. I put this into this prompt here, into Midjourney. Midjourney is an AI image generator. This wording here is how Tommy Hilfiger describes themselves in their branding documents, in their press statements, everywhere. This is how they do it. So, classic American aesthetic, preppy, all of that stuff. This, to me, using how they describe themselves, doesn't look like a Tommy Hilfiger photo shoot at all. But if in that same thing you type in photo shoot with 4 people for Tommy Hilfiger, this looks a lot closer to what it is. So what's interesting here is that how Tommy Hilfiger are describing themselves isn't how the majority of people online view Tommy Hilfiger. This is. So if you're a brand and you're wondering how you're being perceived online or how you speak about yourselves, could be quite an interesting tactic to put it into here and see what people actually think you look like. So then what is the solution? Well, it's to make content that's timeless, that AI couldn't replicate, using all of those copy techniques, using real human thoughts and feelings. Imbue your social copy with your brand's personality. That's a big one. You know who you are better than any machine ever will, so use that in your copy. And also, don't shut out AI for research purposes. Bex is about to tell you how to use that for PR, but obviously AI is great for giving you objective information. Well, our job now is to make sure that we're adding our human subjectivity to it to get the best results, which is sort of nicely leads into Bex.
All right. Before I start, can I just have a show of hands who works in communications, PR, and not solely marketing, just to see how many people we've got. Oh, I love the MTMers putting your hands up. That's so cute. You know what I do. Right, one of the things I'm going to talk a lot about is how this supports what you're already doing. We are never going to be in a position that we would recommend or that we're going to do is getting AI to write your content, your press releases, or anything like that. We don't want to be in that position. We wouldn't ever recommend it to clients. But what we do want to share with you is how we use it to be better in efficiency, get better value from client retainers, and actually how we can just use it on the research side to further support what we're trying to do and make some of those time savings and put our time, that we spent on your sort of work and anybody potentially how you can better do that. So you can use AI for obviously data research, surveys for your news stories. Obviously, always bear in mind where that data may have come from. You might want to look in more than one place. We do actually access different types of AI software. We don't just use one, because you will get different results, and I'll show you an example of that later on. But it does give the ability to analyze that data, identify the trends. It can give you standout figures. So if you ran your own data through AI and you wanted to garner some details and some stats and headlines that were then going to give you a press release out of it, you might actually, and I've just mentioned on the bottom point here, you might be able to garner 3 different stories from one lot of data that you've done, or a survey that you've done of your customers, and that actually gives you enough ammo to have content that can see you through. However often you might issue press releases, you might not churn them out, in bigger volumes. But it might actually give you enough for the next 6 months that you've got lots of different things that actually are newsworthy enough to be a headline. And we all know how much the media love stats, because the authenticity and the proof in what you're doing, everything that MTM does is data driven, and us be able to use that to then make PR stories for you. So one of the things, this picture's really small. Sorry, this isn't black today. It's gone a funny color with this. So one of the things that you can use AI for is in reactive, when we think about things like PR crises. So if you give the example of something like public affairs, when you've got maybe elections going on, or an announcement has been made about a change in policy and that kind of thing, you may be able to see that people are talking about things and that sentiment is switching very quickly. You can use AI software to actually keep an eye on how that is going. Now, you might already have software that monitors your media coverage, monitors your sentiment and all that kind of thing. Lots of them have AI built into them now as well. If they haven't, they will be, or they should do very, very quickly. But this gives an example. Sorry, I'm standing in front of it. This gives an example of how a story is broken at 7 o'clock in the morning. It then, at only 5 minutes later, has triggered an alert that actually there's lots of things being talked about with it and they might not be great. And then later on, it's giving a prediction of how that's going. So obviously, if you're being reactive, whether you're a press office or you've got a PR agency like us working for you, you're able, or we're able, whoever's keeping an eye on it, to actually see how that trajectory is going, and you can make preparations as to whether you might need to be in a position that you need to issue statements, and see how that's then going to go. And it's really important, obviously we never really advocate issuing PR and stuff on a Friday, but say, for example, something broke on a Friday and you've seen that going like that, and you can then get preparations in place that you might need to have a team, alerted and around at the weekend, because you never know when something's going to happen on a crisis front. We know that. The next thing that you can use it for proactively, and I do love this example. So I know it's a bit small. Proactive newsjacking. So you guys will be aware of what newsjacking is, in being able to hijack a particular story or trend and be able to spin it. Sometimes you have to be very, very quick off the mark. Sometimes it falls flat on its face. But some people are very good at doing it. Reebok is one of them. Now, this was actually, the video, I've got 2 examples here, but the video is from Pokemon having released and Pokemon Go and being very, very popular, and the hashtags, obviously, everything's being talked about loads. Now, they've managed to spin this, and they wanted to say that they're taking it to the next level with their Z print trainers, and they're going to help everybody catch them all. So they made this, I'm just going to play it again while I'm talking. They made this advert where they've got everybody wearing these trainers in a park, and then obviously going on their phones to play Pokemon. And it just shows you how they're jumping on that hashtag, and they're using the ability to be able to, respond. The next example I've got of it is for an election. So they Super Tuesday hashtag, that will always be used obviously until every election in the US till the cows come home, has got, they actually came up with the idea that they wanted to encourage any candidates to run a 10-minute mile, and they would give $50,000 to charity. Now, they obviously wanted to jump on the hashtag, but this is where you can use that software to see what the trends are. So yes, this is normal social media and responding and you keeping an eye on stuff. But if you've got alerts set up, or you think to yourself, we've got a massive election coming up, how can we use that? And they're thinking about that beforehand. You can see how those trends are going, and you can use that software to identify that. So how will we actually use AI to be able to help, and the research that it gives you and the positivity that you can get out of it? Well, it is up to date. You will always get the most up-to-date results. It will narrow results into certain timeframes as well. And an example that I'll show you shortly will be an example of that. Also, you can keep asking questions to train it, to hone those results, to really make it relevant to you. And obviously, you've also got the ability that it can access so many different things that are the most recent research. So you could sit there with Google and put in 20 questions and not get as much as you would get from maybe one and a follow-up question on AI software. So that efficiency that I talked about and what it can actually do to help you is where that can really, really aid your business and actually try and be that much more efficient. So the example that I've got here, this is only one AI software. Now, the funny thing about this, and if you don't know, I couldn't be more of the grammar police in my team. I'm the queen proofer. I put this question on the left into software, AI software. And it doesn't make sense. What UK journalists, shoot me in the face, have written about sustainability in shipping in the last 6 months? I got all these results, and you don't need to be able to see them, but I got all these results that told me what journalists have written in and where they've written it and the type of history and expertise they've got, what they've written before and the types of things they've written. I then went, that actually doesn't make sense, that question. I need to change that first word because I put it in wrong. So then I put, which UK journalists have written about sustainability in shipping in the last 6 months? And the results are completely different from one word that I just made a mistake on. So what I wanted to do was show just how different the results that you get are, just from one word. But actually, what the results that I then got from having done that is telling me exactly where they had been placed and a lot less info about the journalist. But what this does showcase is if you are PR and if you're comms, you might have software that obviously enables you to look up what media you should be accessing in certain areas of the business and industries. We obviously use it because we've got lots of clients in different industries. But if you're trying to find who's done something recently, because those softwares don't stay up to date. We know they don't. We have to tell them when people leave because even though they've got a team doing it, it's never quick enough and they're never updated quick enough when people leave. So to be able to access something like this where, and you can narrow that down to the last 3 months, but you can find out who is writing about exactly what you want to position to make sure that you can then pitch to the right people about what you're pitching about. So if we have a look at the real-time AI monitoring that I mentioned earlier, and obviously there's lots of things that can develop in real time and you can really use them as an additional team member within a crisis. So where I mentioned earlier that you can see that trajectory if something is starting to be negative, you might have issued a particular statement about something, and then you can see what that negativity is starting to look like. But you don't need to have a PR assistant who, on that day that you've issued something or you've responded to a crisis, is sat there monitoring, what are we doing next? You can have AI doing that for you to be able to highlight when those things are either going south, that you know what to do next. You might have already issued that initial crisis statement, but what's the next sort of activity that you're going to do? What's the next response that you need to do? And you can keep on top of all of that and take the necessary action with it all. And of course, what we don't want is for AI to cause you a crisis, because whoever wants a crisis? This example shows you how, so this was actually from a couple of years ago, but I just thought it was a really good example. So there was a report of an explosion at the Pentagon, and where it had then gone on, this is actually mainly Twitter, but where it had then gone on Twitter, Twitter AI had pulled in an AI-generated image that backed up the story that was being reported that there was a fire at the Pentagon. And teamed with the news article, it basically went crazy because the picture supports it and then creates panic. So because that image that doesn't represent what happened, and it wasn't right at all, because I think the fire was very small and wasn't a big deal, not only did they need to have the fire department and the Department of Defense issue a reactive statement because of that photo. They also had unnecessary panic, and it also had the stock market dip because of it, just because that photo was pulled into the story automatically and wasn't true. So it just shows you, and I would say in this instance, it's not something you can control, but I wanted to explain how you almost need to be a little bit prepared that sometimes you just need to be on your toes because you're not, and keeping an eye on all of that kind of stuff when you've issued things that you're not quite sure how something might develop. And also, if you're thinking about your crisis communications reactive plans, what does that look like? Do we need to be thinking about AI in that? And does that need to come into your plans? Because it won't be long before it's a very real consideration that something like that could happen. And what do you then do? And the only thing that they could do in this instance was issue a statement to quash it, and hope that people were then going to either make the change, take it down. But by that point, it had gone pretty wild on Twitter. The other thing that I wanted to point out, you may have seen on the 25th of February this year that every single UK national newspaper did a cover, and they all had the same cover called Make It Fair with the AI made into a different colour. And the reason that this very, very rare act of solidarity that came from the national media in the UK, and the reason that they did that was that the UK government is suggesting that copyright shouldn't be a thing in AI, and that AI should be able to just run and then not have to charge for the stuff that they're pulling in. So if, for example, all of the newspapers, all of the material that they're running and the reports that are coming out, the AI is allowed to just have it. And of course, we're in an age where nearly every single one has got a paywall now. So they're obviously fighting for the fact that we've got journalists working their butts off for all of these reports and the hard work that we do, the features that we do, and yet you're going to allow AI models to just pull them in to train it. And obviously in creative industries like music and artistry and all of those sorts of things, there's copyright involved in all of it, and they're getting royalties if somebody wanted to use something, or they have to pay for that. Same for photography. If you're selling a photo to a national, they're getting paid for it. So it shouldn't be right, and that's the argument, and obviously the act of them coming together to say that that's not okay, that you can just take everything we're doing and let it feed and train these models. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was just the AI, the knock-on effect of using AI for some of your content. So on your websites, you might have places where you've got blogs or thought leadership or press releases, for example. Probably not the press releases so much in this, but if you've used AI to try and help write a thought leadership piece or a blog, and you've then put it on your website, Google might, and we're not in a place where it's a guarantee yet, but Google might put down your rankings for having AI content on your website. So we're not talking about using AI to write your website generally and those bits, but if you've used it to make a blog or to make a thought leadership and they recognize that you've got chunks within that is not authentic, Google's thinking to itself, okay, I've got this in two places. Who was the original and who do I trust? Who do I then decide has the right that their website's in a good place because they're original? They don't know any of that. So it's far better that you have that authentic content and you can make sure that what you're putting out is actually original at the end of the day, because otherwise you're going to end up with stuff that is copied and somebody else might have it. One of the things that I wanted to finish on was the Southern Daily Echo advertised its first AI reporter role last month, because we're April now, in March. And I think this is a huge deal. And I wanted to include it today because it's a real shift. NewsQuest, as of 2 days ago, has now got 36 AI roles across its business. Now, we know there are an awful lot of NewsQuest titles in all of the main cities and whatnot in the UK, so 36 might not sound that much, but obviously the big players, probably, and the Southern Daily Echoes of the world are doing it. Now, this role is advertised that they're going to use AI software to create articles. It's also going to be their responsibility to train other journalists at the Echo on AI. it's also going to be their responsibility to make sure that they keep an eye on plagiarism and everything. So if they're creating content from AI, then they have to make sure that it's authentic and that they're not going to be in trouble for having, copied things, and the legal aspects and all of that. So I think it's really interesting to see that switch. They're in addition to their existing journalists, but it just shows you how they realise that they need to be using it to make more content, and that they obviously feel it's the right thing that they need in the business. But I do think it's worthwhile just noting that change, because it's the first time I've seen it, and also what that looks like. People that are doing journalism degrees, for example, what they're coming out of university, are they then needing to, it's a very different shift. And I imagine lots of those degrees are probably going to change in the content that they have as well, so that people are trained in a way that, and get to know what role AI is going to play in that. I'm just going to finish on, just to sum up on the fact that we definitely aren't going to have those roles replaced by AI, because you need to have the human touch. And very much in PR, we want to make sure that everything we do is authentic and is original, and that we're using our skills and our media relations to get the best results for clients. And obviously, if you're in-house, that you're using it as best you can for yourself, but that you use it to make efficiencies, and you use it in a way to really help just back up what you're doing or save some time. That example that I gave for you saving, being able to look up what journalists have written something in the last 6 months, that's a really quick answer for you to then use the content you've got, use your pitch that you've got, and then you can go and obviously speak to the right journalists about that. It's just making that quick efficiency to actually give you some really great results. But we don't think there's going to be a situation where you're not going to need that human input. And as we, when Faber asked everybody earlier if you can identify AI copy, we all know that for the grammar queen, having a capital letter on every single word immediately shows you that something's come from AI, because that's what they do. It drives me crazy, and immediately you know that it's not coming from an authentic place. So hopefully that has been helpful, and I'll open up to questions now. Whether you've got anything for Faber or myself, then just shout.
Perfect. So what I want to talk about is some of the emerging sort of technologies within machine learning and AI that actually allows us to really start to understand exactly how our audiences think, feel, and behave, and therefore how we can actually start creating a lot more intelligent content. So to start at the beginning, one of the things with social media which is quite interesting is stereotypically it's often viewed as the sort of the fluffy discipline within marketing. It's almost everyone's got a phone, so everyone knows how to do social. But what's really, I think, is really important about this is that we need to start moving away from viewing social media in each post as we have to post X amount of times per week, and we're doing it just in the sense of it's a necessary function to keep the lights on. So the reason for this is that it tends to force us into quite a short-term view where we start to sort of over-interrogate every single post in regards to analysing its success in regards to likes and standard vanity metrics. So the reason for this is that what we're trying to do in this way is speak to everyone, all of our audience. I don't know which one to point this at. Basically, we're trying to speak to everyone within our funnel in the same way at the same time. And often what this means is when you look at your content success over different time frames, is there's not actually a significant difference year on year. So what I try to say in terms of having a long-term strategy is you should actually view your content sequentially. So every single post, basically, I like to say, causes a ripple. It impacts every single post that comes after it. So in this regard, it's really important to start your content because of how you're telling that long-term story. You basically want a content that runs through it, that helps you build trust, helps you build equity, and then basically make sure that every single post has a purpose, that ultimately trying to cause something that's ideal for your business. So what does this mean? So success today basically exists within the intersection between creativity and data. I like to say that that's where the magic happens. You can get far using one or the other, but you definitely get the furthest when you combine the two. So it doesn't mean that you should use data to inform every single post that you should make, and it doesn't mean that you should remove the creativity and the designers. You really do need both, because having both allows you to reduce that threshold for error to really know what works, so you can actually keep delivering the content that allows your post to succeed. So in regards to actually measuring this, so a lot of you will be used to the standard dashboards you get within the actual platforms themselves. However, when you actually pull the raw data from the different platforms, you can go into a lot more depth when you start to label the actual variables. So what I'm going to do is quickly cover through some of these different variables I'm talking about that you don't necessarily get when you look at the standard dashboards. So to some of you, this will be like sucking eggs. So I do apologize. We're going to start off quite broad and move in a lot more narrow to sort of like the machine learning part of the talk. So the first dimension we think about is time. So the time of your posting really does obviously impact the success of the post itself. So what you want to try and do is actually post all your posts when your audience is ready to receive it. So for example, don't be posting when they're asleep. Secondly, what I'd like to say is frequency is really important. So each platform kind of has its nuance in regards to how often it wants you to post. Something like X wants you to post frequently, whereas something like LinkedIn is sort of set up not to try and allow you to go viral. It's more important where it's based around value. So in this regard, I always say it's really important to space out the posts that you have. If you have constraints in how often you can actually post, so let's say, for example, you only post twice per week, it's better to post your first post on a Monday and the last one on a Friday, because if you were to post the first one on the Monday and the second one on the Tuesday, what often tends to happen is they actually compete for engagement, and this can sometimes actually impact what will happen when your audience comes on. Let's say they haven't been on LinkedIn for 2 days, they will often then only see one of your posts and not both. So I always like to say spread out your post so that it has the ability to breathe, because then when it has that ability to breathe, it has a better opportunity to succeed. So another thing that's not often considered in regards to social media is sort of like your business seasonality. So you want to be talking about what is most important to your audience at that point in the year. So if you have a part in the year where your product or your service has a higher level of demand, it's often important to actually start priming people the month before. And then in the periods where it's actually low demand, you want to start building the trust, the equity, and within your brand and your service along your most advocate consumers. This will then put you in a better position to build that more significant results when it comes to that time of demand, where you'll get an increased word of mouth and stuff like that. So the next dimension is content. Now for content, I want you to imagine it as more so the why and the creatives that go behind actually creating the post itself. So each post obviously can be posted in a different way for different formats. And again, each platform kind of has its nuance into what it favors. So standardly, you've got photos, videos, and you've got graphics. Now, each of these obviously perform differently, and they should be used differently across your content. The next one is your content theme and your content pillars. So these are some small examples of such things as events, thought leadership, and case studies. Now, each of these and varying your content in this way is so important. A lot of businesses very much try and do the same sort of strategy with their ads as they do with their organic social. With organic social, again, you want to be looking at it sequentially as in regards to that story. So for an event piece, you might be saying about where you might be, the videos of actually being at the event and then doing the event roundup. That then obviously shows the actual people behind the business. Thought leadership may be leveraging PR articles or blog articles that you put on your website. And then the case studies actually showing people that have experienced your brand and your product without forcing promotion is in front of their faces. The next dimension is text. So what's really interesting about text in posts is that you'd be surprised that not many people actually go on to read the full caption. So in this regard, it's something where if people are reading it, you want to put yourself in the best position to succeed when they are reading it. So these are several different variables which you might not consider standardly when you actually think about writing your post. Every single one of these, dependent on the platform that you're using, will actually impact the success of your post. And they all relate to, again, the format of your posting, the time that you're posting. And again, these just give you an idea of all the different things that is existing behind your social media posts that you might have not thought about before. So what does this look like? Basically, optimization isn't going to be something new to a lot of you. So a really good example of this is Diver CEO. Whether you're a big fan of Stephen Bartlett or not, what they do with their marketing is very, very smart. So they will test 100 different thumbnails on Facebook, which is basically considered their secondary platform. And whichever one performs the best, they will use as the thumbnail for YouTube, which is basically their primary platform. So they are using the Facebook to position themselves to understand how the audience behaves, to not cross-contaminate their two platforms, to put their where they're going to get the most traffic in the best position to succeed. So I've obviously covered quite a lot, and what I'm going to show you is an example of this is what we're sort of looking at within the MTM agency ourselves. So we're trying to turn organic social into a bit more of a science. So what you can see here is a diagram of the different dimensions that I've discussed, from content dimensions, text dimensions, and time dimension. So somewhat, this is your input into creating a post, and all of these variables are interacting with each other, which will then impact your engagement metrics and then your success metrics. So a simpler way of looking at this is this one here. So you can see that on the left side, you have your input. Going into the triangle space as you get closer and closer to posting, the post goes live, and then then you have your output, so your engagement metrics, which directly then impact your success metrics. So with all of this and all these variables I've discussed, here is an example of a client that we're currently working with, where we've pulled out the raw data, actually started to go through and label
these different variables we've been discussing. So what this allows us to do is really start to understand
and get some more granular insights into what's actually working and what their audiences are actually consuming. So as an example of this is, for those who know box plots, essentially this is the highest value, this is the 75th percentile, this is the average, this is the bottom 25 percentile, and that's the lowest result. So in regards here, what you can see is when we share images, it performs exponentially better than when we actually just share infographics. So you are going to have constraints within your business. So you can only get X amount of images per month. You can only make so many graphics per month. But this just gives you an idea of, or gives us an idea of where we should be actually spending our efforts. So going to the next stage, when it goes to content pillars. So we break down all the different content so we know what we're talking about in this sort of subtle different way. So for example here, when we talk about the team and the people behind the brand and behind the product, on average, it does much better than any other pieces that we do. This is very bespoke to each client, so dependent on within your area and your industry, people actually consume these different content pillars differently, but understanding this allows us to distribute the content towards what succeeds best. And then another thing is, social is obviously social. So here's an example again where in the red here, this is when we have people in the assets and the creatives that we're sharing, and then the blue is when we don't. So you can see that the average is still so much higher than it is for the ones without people in. So again, where we can, we always try and get our clients in this. With any calendar that we produce or anything that we are creating, we try to spin it towards what their audience engaged best with. So this now takes me on to obviously the machine learning side of the talk. So there is a distinct difference between AI and machine learning. AI is more so a system that's more autonomous in regards to making decisions for itself and acting upon them, whereas machine learning is much more the process of learning from data and then making informed predictions from that point. So what I want to do is show you an interesting example where some of you might be familiar with an AI system that was made called Deep Blue. This is a system which basically they designed to beat the world champion at chess. And the way in which it did it is it's able to predict, based on the pieces on the board, the next best move in order to put itself in the best position to win. And so what I'm trying to get to the point of at the moment with what we're doing with our clients is actually using this same process to then basically start to understand that if we were to post something on a Monday that was a case study, if we are optimizing for whether it is web visits, new followers, or we're looking for engagement such as likes, that we know what sequentially we should put in order to actually get the best results. Now this again is basically reducing that margin for error. It's trying to move away from being intuition-led with social media and being a lot more informed with the data. So we have a lot more hits on target than we have misses. And so where this gets actually fascinating and really, really amazing is what I should have done is sort of start to change your level of magnification, how you're looking at posts, is they have a lot more power than you think. And when they're working together over a longer period of time, they can really differentiate you as a brand. And year on year, when you are pulling this data and doing this sort of form of labeling, is that you will be getting a lot further and a lot more insights than anyone else within your space. So you will know exactly what your audience is, and as you grow, you will start to see exponential results as you start to work in more of sort of compound interest. So what I've basically talked about at the moment is optimizing for one organic channel. Now, it does get to a point where as you start pulling this data and using these techniques, is we can actually start to analyze how all of the different platforms interact together. So rather than just cross-posting, like all posts each channel at the same time, it would actually be more so about how do we time them differently to make sure that, again, it's engaging with our audience correctly across all the different channels. But then also taking that next step further, it's all the different data sources that we have and data streams, is how do they all connect and work together to create basically an ecosystem, optimize
both the physical and the digital environment, so that
all of your audience, every single bit of communication and content that you are sharing is successfully nudging them towards what you're ideally wanting them to do. So this leads me to ask the question, how intelligent is your content? So where you are
in the journey,
what's important is to start thinking about the power of social media and how the impact they can have on yourself as a brand. To try to move away from, if you are in this position of, we need to get something out Wednesday, let's throw something quickly, and actually start putting together more comprehensive long-term solutions that aligns with your marketing and brand objectives. So for some 3 quick wins to take away from today, one of the first thing I always say is obviously start to plan your content, as I said. So do an audit, find out what's working, what's not working, and then start to put together a calendar which you can actually align with your marketing and business objectives. Second of all, as you execute this content, as you share it, start to consider those content dimensions, those different dimensions I mentioned previously. So content, text, and timing, to really start to narrow down what's working and why it's working so you can keep doing that. And then thirdly, use all what you're finding to learn. So I always say compare different time frames. So compare month to month, compare quarter to quarter, and then compare each 6 months to each 6 months. So that basically over a period of a year, you'll be in a very different place from where you were the year before. And you'll know why, because you'll be able to compare it to the seasonality of your business and how your content was reacted at that time. And then this is basically an ongoing process. And doing this year on year, you should see exponential difference. And that's where some of these new tools that have become available to us is really, really basically allowing us to basically take the next step and differentiate both our clients and then also ourselves. But that's me. I believe we're going to a break now. So in the interest of time, if anyone has any questions, obviously please come grab me. I love talking about this stuff, and I'm obviously more than happy to go into some more depth. I am called Mike the Slide Guy, so there was a lot that was taken out of this. That's the time. So if there's anything you want me to go further into more detail on, obviously please come grab me. I'll be more than happy to discuss it with you.
Hello everyone, I'm Michelle, so I'm Senior PR Director at the MTM agency, and I'm going to be joined by Ollie, who is PR Manager, and we are incredibly honoured to have Sam Stanner with us as well today. So what we're going to be talking about, Sam's going to kind of set the scene, talk a little bit about Stanner. I'm then going to be talking about authentic storytelling in PR, and Ollie will finish by talking about the Ideal Home Show exhibition. So if I could hand over to Sam first.
Thank you very much. All right. Yeah, thank you very much for having me, guys. All right, so my job here really is just to introduce, can you all hear me? Or maybe a bit better. Yeah, to introduce some absolutely fantastic work that MTM have been doing for us. So many people know the brand Stanner. You're all far too young, surely, but yeah, some people have heard of the brand Stanner. We're an 150-year-old business. It's a 6th generation family business. I'm part of the 6th generation of the family. Here's sort of a family photo that we have family photo, sort of a photo of the business from 1867 or so when it was launched. Little company secret is no one actually knows which one of these is my great-great-great-grandfather, but we use it in all our marketing and hope that one of them might have been. So it's an 150-year-old family business, but I came to MTM with a bit of a challenge. You know, the business is 150 years old. The product is well known. You know, we've done all sorts of things around the lift industry. You know, we started with lift parts that were going into cranes that took things off the container ships on the River Thames. We've done lifts for cars. We've done hydraulic lifts in Victorian houses. We've had our factory destroyed in the war. We've had the business rebuilt. And in 1975, my grandfather and his brother, they launched what we are now most famous for, which is the stairlift product. And then for the last 50 years, we've been investing in the Stana brand, and we've been saying, hey, this is an amazing product. If you get old, you struggle with the stairs. Everybody does. How do you deal with it? And the stair lift was born, and it's grown. It's we do 50,000 of them a year now from the 66 we did in 1975 in the first year. But the challenge that I came to MTM with was that's great in everything, and the brand name is synonymous with the product. People will say, get a Stana, not get a stair lift, and you'll hear. I was listening to the Rest is Football podcast, and Gary Lineker was telling Alan Shearer he needs a Stana. And I was even actually listening to one of those old Ricky Gervais podcasts or radio shows from sort of 2004, and even he is claiming the same thing. So the brand really has stuck. Stana has stuck, and it's associated to stair lifts. And when I was growing up, I always thought, wow, how amazing. You hear your surname every now and then. But the older I've got, and the more close I've got to the business, I've always wondered, and now started to wonder, is that always a good thing? Because the product in itself has quite a lot of stigma attached to it. And one of the problems that we deal with every single day is people saying, we don't need one of those, we're not old, or I'm not giving up yet. And it kind of breaks our heart, because when we give people the products, it changes their lives, but we find that people buy them far, far, far too late. Honestly, I think that we have some statistics about the life expectancy of people who buy our products, and it's low single digits. Whereas they might have needed it for a lot longer. And our sales teams fight against this problem when we try really hard to just energize the brand and to reimagine it. And we want to try and transform from home accessibility into modern living and break the stigma and all of this. But the problem that we had is that we just simply have just tried and we can't get through. And it's one of the biggest things that's restricting growth globally, because how do you expand your market? Well, expand the age range of people that can buy your product, want to buy your product, or accepting of your product. So 150 years of brand equity built up, 6 generations of the family. I sat down and I said, that's great and everything, but why don't we just try and throw that all out the window and try something new? And I think the look that I initially got was one of shock and horror from my father and the rest of the generation that run the business. But I persuaded them to let us do it, and it coincided with the launch of a new product as well, a product that's a home elevator rather than a stair lift. It's called a home lift. It's taking everything that a stair lift does, installed in a day, and relatively no need for building work and quite affordable, but actually puts it into a vertical lift. And I came to MTM and said, let's do it. And it's called the brand Uplifts. That name was created by my wife over brunch, which is brilliant. I've actually got the scribble that she wrote on a piece of paper suggesting it. Bit of family legacy there as well. So we came up with the idea of Uplifts. And it's been brilliant so far. I must say these guys are some of the best people I've worked with on a PR side of things. They've used a rocket ship here, because in all my messages to them, I like to use the rocket emoji. But what they've really done is taken the legacy of what Stana has been, the 150 years, the reliability, the British manufactured company, the family history, the family legacy, but poured that all into a way that allows us to solve the problem of the first glance. Oh, it's a Stana, I don't need it. But once the customer digs deeper and really starts to understand who we are, they see all of that and the strength that makes us so powerful. So it's been brilliant. And the talk is called From Heritage to Innovation. And I think it's kind of what we've done. Am I worried about us being out-innovated on the products? Maybe. But where I'm more worried, I think, generationally, is us being out-innovated on the business model or the approach or our ability to be flexible. And what MTM have really done is helped us think differently, think flexible. We've launched a new brand. The success of it, it's about 4 to 6 months old, but it's doing really well. All the metrics are going in the right direction. It's actually energized the business too. We like to call it the startup within. And it's helped really change the culture of quite a kind of rigid family business too, which is I will always be thankful for, because it's kind of given us a new leg of life. So on that note, I think I've sung MTM's praises enough. They put this slide in there and made me maybe do that. I'll ask for the discount later. But in all seriousness, it's been brilliant. And I'll hand over to Michelle now, and she'll talk you through how she did it, because it's a bit of art.
Thanks, Sam. Oh, can you hear me okay? Perfect. So in today's landscape, we can't just market to people now. We need to communicate with them. So using authentic communication, it builds trust, it kind of creates a culture, and also has the biggest impact. And a study said that brands that tell authentic stories are 4.5 times more likely to be trusted by consumers than those that don't. So why do audiences connect with genuine narratives? This was a really nice quote, and I think it just sums it up really nicely. So genuine stories create genuine connections. In PR, authenticity isn't just a buzzword. It's the foundation of meaningful relationships with your audience. When you share real narratives that reflect real experiences, you invite audiences to see themselves in your story. They see themselves with your product, with your service, so it's really, really important. So authentic storytelling in PR, before we reach the audience, we have another barrier. We have journalists. So like Sam said, so Stanner is known for their mobility products. I know as a PR person, I can call up Colin from Ability Needs magazine and tell him, we've got this exciting new brand, Uplifts. Can you write about it? And Colin, being kind of a sector-specific publication in his Scottish accent, will tell me, yes, Michelle, I will definitely cover this for you. This is great. However, we need to reach more of a wider audience. So we need to be speaking to the nationals. If I call, say, Dan, the news reporter from the Daily Mirror, and tell him, we've got a new home lift brand, will you cover this? He would tell me where to go. He would tell me to get better at my job and stop wasting his time. So this is what we've got to think about. How do we make our stories interesting and journalists want to cover them? So quite often, we use the research approach. And I really like this diagram that kind of sums up how we use research. So we get the data, we sort it, we arrange it, we can present it visually, but then we can explain it with a story. I think you'll all agree this is the nicest picture. So how did we do this with Uplifts? So we conducted comprehensive consumer research, and that was the basis of our story that we told. So we did a nationwide survey of 2,000 homeowners just to really understand how people feel about their home, how they see the future in their home, and if they want to move because of considerations. So this created an authentic story angle. Really, really interesting insights from that data. The most important, I think, that came out of that was 68% of the respondents were emotionally attached to their homes, but worried about their future mobility. They were worried that they couldn't stay in their home for much longer because of their mobility issues. And that really created a significant internal conflict about whether to love it or list it. And that's what formed our story. So we created the Love It or List It campaign. So rather than leading with product features, we developed this narrative about loving your home and thinking about whether you can stay in it or you're going to have to move out. And instead of positioning Uplifts as providing a product, it was providing a solution so people could stay in their homes, their forever homes where they've made memories. How did we get this story heard? So first of all, we pitched the story to a wide range of broadcast media, and we had a radio day. So Sam was our main spokesperson on the radio day, and Sam can really speak passionately about this, as you've just heard. However, we thought, who else could we use to make the story really authentic? So we invited Kate Sheehan, who is Stanner's and Uplifts occupational therapist, so has years and years of experience of keeping people in their homes, and she came on the radio day with Sam and spoke really passionate about this. We then pitched the story to online media and also print media and secured nationwide coverage. And here are the results. So with this approach, we secured 6 national news pieces featuring the research. And we got 18 pieces of online coverage in high authority publications. We also got 12 in-depth radio interviews exploring the emotional aspects of aging in place. And that equated to 158 million estimated online audience reach, 1.2 million radio audience reach, and 100% of that coverage included the brand mention and also quotes from Sam. And this is just a little picture of some of the results there in some of the nationals. So following these results, we wanted to do it all over again. So we created the Embracing Aging campaign. Again, we used research to build the story. So we did a nationwide survey of 1,000 adults, but this time we wanted to focus on people that were 55 and above. And we wanted to ask them about their attitudes towards aging, how they felt about it, about being confident, about being romantic, all these different things that you face as you get older. And we really focused on the emotional and psychological aspects of aging rather than just physical considerations. This time, we wanted to go one step further. So we wanted to include an authentic voice to help tell that story. So which household name springs to mind when we think of embracing life fully? And who would resonate with the Uplifts target audience? Leslie Joseph. Does everyone know who Leslie Joseph is? Yes, we've got some nodding heads, great. So she is Dorian Green, so the well-known character from the sitcom Birds of a Feather, known for her confidence, her flirtatious manner, and just really embracing getting old with confidence. So why we chose her? Her public persona and personal experience aligned perfectly with the campaign message. She could speak genuinely about embracing life's later chapters with confidence, and she really, really did. Her character, Dorian, was widely recognised for challenging ageing stereotypes, and she could connect with the target demographic, which grew up watching her on television. And she could share personal anecdotes about reinforced research findings. So the results of this campaign, we actually got TV coverage. So Leslie was on Good Morning Britain, talking about the research, and also we had a brand mention on the TV. We also got coverage across 12 BBC radio shows with an audience of 1.5 million, with Leslie talking about her friend getting a home lift and how amazing it's been for her, and just talking about aging confidently in general. We also got widespread coverage in lifestyle and news publications, substantial social media engagement increase in website traffic and inquiries about Uplifts products. So some key insights from this. Let research uncover emotional truths, not just statistical data. Center your stories on human experiences rather than just products. It really will come across to your audience better. Use authentic voices, both executives like Sam, experts like Kate, and also customers to tell the story. Frame the narrative around common emotional dilemmas your audience faces. It will make them understand it more. Create a compelling hook that encapsulates the authentic story. And spokesperson selection is critical. Authenticity comes from alignment between personal experience and campaign message. Positive, empowering messaging based on real experiences resonates more than promotional content. And I think you can see that from the results we got. So, you may all wonder why you completed a survey as you walked in this morning. I thought it'd be fun to do a live research story with you guys. So here are the results from your survey this morning. Obviously, I haven't memorized this because I had to go away, mine the data, and put a story together very, very quickly. So I am going to read it from the laptop. So snooze, lose, and confuse, the shocking truth about British mornings. So a new research reveals the hilarious and somewhat tragic reality of British morning habits. So 68% of Britons, you guys, hit the snooze button at least twice each morning. 92% regularly forget something critical before leaving home, and 67% of you admit to feeling like zombies before the first cup of coffee, whilst 4 in 10 have accidentally worn odd socks to work, and 76% confess to talking to themselves or their houseplants before 9 a.m. Wes Maynard, Managing Director of the MTM agency, describes the findings as a perfect snapshot of national morning dysfunction. What we're seeing is more than just data, Wes explains. It's a national narrative of morning survival. These percentages aren't just numbers, they're a collective experience of sleep-deprived, caffeine-dependent professionals. That's you. The most shocking revelation comes from the snooze button statistics. At 68%, it suggests that nearly every British worker is engaged in a daily battle with their alarm clock, a war fought under the warm comfort of duvet covers. It's essentially a national sport, jokes Mark Thompson, he's made up at this point, a workplace psychologist. We're world class at prolonging those last few moments of sleep. The research raises serious questions about productivity, mental health, and the fundamental British ability to function before 10 a.m. Companies are now being urged to consider more flexible morning policies, recognizing that the traditional 9 to 5 might be fighting against biological percentages. Perhaps most endearing is the revelation that 4 in 10 Brits have walked out of their homes with mismatched socks. In fact, 2 of you today have got odd socks on. I don't know if anyone wants to admit that, but there are 2 of you out there with odd socks on. A statistic that speaks to a broader national attitude of good enough morning preparedness. These numbers are more than just amusing, says workplace analyst Sarah Jenkins, also made up. They reveal a deeper truth about modern work culture, sleep deprivation, and the constant juggle between personal comfort and professional expectations. For those wondering if they're alone in their morning struggles, the data provides a comforting message. You are not just an individual, you are 68% of a nation. So that just goes to show how we did a simple survey, mined the data, and have completely formed a news story from it, which we could pitch to the media. So I hope that brings it all together nicely, and I'm going to hand over to Ollie.
A mic, cue cards, and a clicker. This is going to be fun. So, the Ideal Home Show, a show-worthy brand launch. I'm just going to play you a quick video which gives you a quick highlight of the show, just to kind of set the scene. In silence. I thought there was music, so soz. I'll just start the speech whilst it's playing because why not? So we wanted a show that was going to be authentic to the brand. I think today you've heard that word a lot, and I'm going to carry on drilling it into you, so apologies for that. We wanted it to be authentic and a show that was going to really help launch the business. So we wanted someone with high footfall that was going to reach the key audiences for the show. And after research, we strategically chose the Ideal Home Show because it seemed ideal. I'm very sorry. So why the Ideal Home Show? We felt that it aligned perfectly with the core audience and the target market. So by exhibiting at the show, they were going to reach homeowners, home improvement enthusiasts, and home consumers in general, who are really going to be key for launching the brand. Maximum footfall, they had over 166,000 people there. So as you can appreciate, that's a lot of people. We also felt that the show was going to align with the design-focused audience and home innovation heritage, which is really key to the brand. So, strategic thinking for the show. When you're doing shows like these, strategic thinking is really key. I think pre-planning and putting your ducks in a row and deciding why you're going to be there and what you're going to do is really, really crucial. So the first thing we did a stand design that really embodied the brand. And what we did was we had a bit of a home setting. So we had some cushions that were branded with Uplifts. We had armchairs. We had the home lift. We also had our brand designs that were in frames on the walls. So we really wanted to make it look nice and cozy and have people be able to imagine the lift in their own home. The next thing we did, we wanted to create some pre-show buzz. So we had some pre-media engagement. So we released a press release announcing that they were going to be exhibiting at the show, announcing all of the stuff that they were going to be doing throughout, and also gave the media opportunities to arrange one-to-ones if they wanted them. We also put in the press release a social media announcement, which I will touch on later. The next thing we wanted to do was have a brand voice. So we wanted to give the customer a chance to be able to have a voice at the show and be a bit of an authoritative figure. So to do that, we arranged some main stage talks, which I will also touch on the next slide. The next thing we did was have celebrity use, which you might have guessed by now who it might be, but might not have. I will also touch on that on the next one. And then the last thing was capturing content. So we wanted to be able to capture content throughout the show that we could use throughout, and then also have some post-show amplification across all the social channels. So, our show activity. As I said, we had the event press release, which we strategically put out to specific targeted media. We had the VIP event with Leslie Joseph, our celebrity ambassador. So for the VIP event, this was actually organised by the Idol Home Show, and as we were a sponsor of the show, we were able to take part in it. So for our brand activation, we had the lift in the dream home, and we had Leslie Joseph there on the stand with some champagne, of course, and we had a Polaroid camera, and she was able to have pictures with the people who were attending and sign the pictures. For the social media competition, we had a Dorian meet and greet. As the brand was fairly new, we wanted to be able to help them to get more followers and get a higher engagement reach on their Instagram page. So we did the social media competition to try and help with this. And one of the call to actions was that they had to follow the page and engage with the page, so trying to boost their presence on Instagram. So the main stage talk that I'd previously spoken about, we had it with the lovely Sam and Leslie. They were talking about the topic of aging with confidence, which is obviously very referenced to the brand. And for the last bit, we had 30 minutes with Sam Stanner media interview. We organised this with the editorial team of the Idol Home Show with Karen, and that went really, really well. So, the results, was it worth it? Was it, Sam? So, from the 21st of April to the 2nd of April, compared to the previous period, we had 118 form submissions, which is probably, I'm hoping, gone up by now. Yeah, perfect. A 231% increase in new users, 151% increase in new sessions, 56% increase in website engagement, and 56% increase in brand search impressions. So I think these results really show that if your PR activity was authentic, you're relatable and personable, and it's telling the right story, then you'll get good results. We also were able to get featured on ITV's This Morning on their live segment, and that also has a reach of 5.5 million viewers a day. That'd be a bit worrying, wouldn't it? And it went so well that we are actually going to be exhibiting next year as well, so come see us. This is also the clip from the show. I know, Claire, you wanted me to get off the stage.
So wallpaper murals, colour drenching, and who doesn't need a leopard print lip?
Well, that was actually a homage to Leslie Joseph, as you can plainly see, who looks as if she's about to try out for the Lion King. She's wearing so much animal print.
I love that. Thank you for that, Lawrence. We're going to keep walking our way through.
Do.
So wallpaper...
Back to Michelle.
Me again. So we just wanted to end on some key takeaways that you can use for your own brands. So when launching a brand, identify your audience's need and find your niche, just like Sam did. Authentic storytelling is key in PR. A story that resonates with your audience will sell your service/product. Research is your best friend. Use it to create authentic stories and interest your audience. And if you're planning an event, make sure you choose one that is authentic to your brand and will reach your audiences. And of course, for the best results, get a great marketing partner to help make it all happen. That's us. Any questions at all for any of us? Any for Sam? No? Okay, well, again, if you do have any questions, just come find us over lunch and I'm sure we can answer them for you. Thank you.
So, yeah, me again, guys. You've met me. I'm going to let the other guys introduce themselves. Kelsey.
Hello, I'm Kelsey. I am the SEO team manager at the MTM agency. And Mihai.
Hi, guys. My name is Mihai Seben. I'm fighting a button at the moment. And I'm a performance marketing, a digital marketing lead here at the MTM. Basically, I'm leading the paid team, working with data science and helping other bits and bobs.
Okay, so I'm going to start by talking about PR and the role of modern PR in marketing. So PR has always been, and I think it always will be, about storytelling, relationships, and ultimately protecting reputations of brands. And I don't think that's ever really going to shift. However, there have been really big shifts in PR, even in the last 5 years, which I'm sure many of you already appreciate. The goal of PR has always been about shaping that public perception for both B2B brands, B2C brands, and everything in between. Traditional PR has often focused on output. We talked a lot previously about, press releases. The role of a press release has changed fundamentally to where we are now. We also focused a lot of attention over the years in terms of media coverage, doing analytics about the types of media coverage, the hideous AVE figure that we've talked about, and it's thankfully been binned. But modern PR has changed, and it includes everything from online news pitching, blog writing, influencer management. I think the guys there talked a little bit about influencers, podcasts, whether they're your own podcasts or you're positioning yourself as a speaker on those podcasts, and any owned content on your channels. But why is PR more essential now than ever? The critical point of it is that we're inundated with ads. So typically, on any normal day, you'll be served between 3,000 and 10,000 ads per day. So if you think on your way to this location here, you're probably already in the 1,000 to 2,000 adverts. Subconsciously, you're being served, which is a huge number. So credibility is never important. It's never been more important than it is now. And PR is a great way of building that. So the peso model, and I'm sure you all have seen the peso model before. Don't worry, I'm not going to be boring you with heavy marketing theory, but this is a really nice way of explaining the role of PR and the importance, and also fundamentally how it integrates with all of the other service areas which the team will talk through. We've typically, as PR professionals, always lived in the earned media space. We're very happy there. But now modern PR is pushing us across all of these different areas. We overlap. I typically call it the connectivity tissue. But it's this bit here that sits in the middle that is the magic. This is the rocket fuel that will drive the best return on investment for your brand. So I'm going to hand over to Kelsey, who's going to talk about the integration of PR and SEO.
Hello.
Click.
Yeah.
Come that side.
Oh, that's it. So at a first glance, SEO and PR may seem really different. One of them is about storytelling and human relationships, whereas the other one, SEO, is about algorithms and keywords and fighting to be seen in the search results. However, with modern day PR, we can typically find ourselves in this middle section here, digital PR. So with traditional PR, we would have been placed in things like magazines, newspapers. However, with the digital age, that now is spread online. So that can be blogs or digital coverage. So that is this sweet spot in the middle, and that is where the two overlap, and that's the bit that we're going to be focusing about today. So when it comes to PR, there are many sort of synergies between SEO and how they can work hand in hand. So typically we have this cycle here. So what happens is Chloe and her team work really hard. They pitch a media placement. That then gets picked up by multiple outlets. If we're lucky, we'll gain some backlinks from that. So that's a link from an external website pointing to ours. From that, we'll see that our rankings improve, and naturally our organic visibility will improve. We'll start climbing our way up those organic rankings. From that, naturally, the higher up in the search results we are, the more people are going to click on the website and the more traffic we're going to get to the website. Equally, that then means that the brand visibility is going to increase, and then the cycle begins. So next time Chloe and her team are pitching that press release, because the brand's gained that visibility, more people are talking about the brand, more people are aware of it, we're more likely to get more coverage from the next press release, and then the cycle sort of continues round and round here. So there are many benefits for SEO from the hard work of Chloe and her team. So some of the points that we are going to touch upon. The first one is backlinks. As I mentioned, backlinks is one of the strongest ways that PR supports SEO. So this is sort of seen as a digital recommendation. So if a credible external website is linking to us and mentioning the brand, then naturally we are going to be seen more credible in ourselves. So if we could secure a link on somewhere like the New York Times, very strong domain authority, very well known placement, then naturally that is going to improve our own website rankings, and we're going to get that link from there. We'll also see benefits through things like referral traffic. So if somebody's reading that article on the New York Times, they then click on that link, they then follow through and visit to our website. So yes, the link itself is valuable in Google's eyes, but also the traffic that we're going to be getting off of the back of that. The second one is thought leadership. So Chloe and her team spend a lot of time sort of pitching, identifying and placing thought leadership content. So that can be through things like guest articles, interviews, and some of the things that Michelle and Ollie have just spoken about that we've done with Uplifts and the credibility around that. So how that benefits SEO, so that will be helping support us with building that credibility and building that authority within the search results. So naturally, more people are going to know about the brand. Naturally, that's going to be another indication to Google that we know our stuff, we're credible, and we should be seen within those search results. The next one follows on from this, so Google's EAT algorithm. So every now and then, Google likes to keep us on our toes and throw out a new algorithm update. What that means is Google is assessing how they determine who deserves to be at the top of the organic rankings. So the EAT algorithm focuses on expertise, authority, and trust. So when we're gaining those thought leadership placements and that media coverage, naturally that is going to follow and feed into that algorithm. It's going to show Google that we are an expert because all of these high coverage placements are talking about us. We are obviously an authoritative source because we're being referenced in the news, and again, that will build that trust within the search. This is also a great way to, when we talk about the PESO model, get us into the owned media section. So when we've got those press releases and thought leadership pieces of content, yes, they're great on external websites as well, but we can utilize that content and pop it on our own website through things like blogs. The last couple we've got on here, media mentions. Obviously, not every press release is going to include a backlink. We would love them to, but not all of them will. However, just naturally, having people mention the brands and having that increase the brand searches is going to benefit us as well and going to help build that expertise and authority in the search. And then finally, the one that I personally think is sort of most overlooked is the demand insights that this gives us. Obviously, when we're putting together an SEO strategy, myself and the team are tirelessly working away, having a look at keywords, having a look at what people are searching for, what terms they're using, and then we're using that within our strategy. However, often we can collaborate with the PR team to actually get insights ahead of any of our tools ever being able to sort of predict that. So if we can see that we've just pitched this news story and lots of people are starting to talk about it and it's a real emerging trend, we're going to get that insight way before any of our tools have even collected that data. So then that's another way that we can help stay ahead of the competition and use that data. And equally, you know, it does work on the flip of that. I might see that there's some search volumes and I might say to Chloe and the team, actually, this could be a really good press story. Let's tap into that. But yeah, a really sort of key point there is that demand insights that it's giving us before any of our tools can ever start to predict that. So then I just have a quick graph here to show you the power of an integrated marketing strategy. So just to kind of set the scene, this is for one of our clients that is full service. So they have PR, SEO, PPC, and social media. So all of those are happening in conjunction with one another at the same time. So on this graph here, we have the yellow line, which is branded search impressions. We have the solid grey line, which is backlinks, so those links from external websites pointing to us. And then the dotted line is website traffic. So when we're working in conjunction with one another and all of those services are happening at the same time, we can see that they're all following that positive trajectory. And that's not to say that you wouldn't see positive results with just doing one of them, but it is definitely amplified by all of those things. So as we can see, we gained lots of backlinks through the press release. Naturally, our website impressions and our search rankings increased. In turn, that meant that website traffic went up and more people knew about the brand. So the branded search impressions went up as well. So some key takeaways from this campaign was 153% increase in branded search impressions. So that's people directly searching for the brand that may not have heard of us before. A 225% increase in organic website sessions. So that's people typing in a keyword that is related to us or our product or service and landing on the website. And then 113% increase in that referral traffic from those backlinks. So it just sort of shows the power of integration and why we want to do all of these services in conjunction with one another and not just working in silos. So that was a very quick whistle-stop tour of the benefits of SEO, but let's hand over to Mihai, where he will talk about how we can use paid media as well.
Cool, thank you, Kelsey. Great to see so many people. Also adds to my fear of public speaking. Brilliant. Kelsey just mentioned integrated. Probably that's my favorite word, and probably that's what I associate with MTM since I joined 4 years ago. So yeah, it's great to have this integrated approach. And let's talk how PR, organic social, paid advertising, how they work the best when they're basically together. And even more, what about throwing SEO in, right? So how that works. From press to precision, right? So it's not just about press anymore, sorry, Chloe, but it kind of changed, right? So it's definitely more and more about precision, more about using different tools and different channels. How it works? Well, PR builds the story, organic will give it presence, and paid social will ensure that it's actually seen, and it's not just seen, but it's seen by the right people at the right time, because we have the tools to make sure that happens. When we combine this credibility of PR with the visibility of organic and the precision of paid, we're not just sharing a story, right? We're kind of driving results and we're trying to boost the ROIs. I'll walk you through a couple of real-life examples if you want. It's a case study, probably heard about it, Like a Girl, a campaign by Always. And another one, which we are currently running actually for our client thread, and we're using LinkedIn paid campaigns, and we do have an integrated approach, and it's a strong connection between PR and social coverage. See if it works. It works. Cool. So before we start and we go into the real-life examples, we thought to give you 4 examples, like practical examples. You can see 4 of them, but obviously we can find more of them, and you work with your teams and you can boost, and probably you'll end up having 8 or 10 or 12 different practical examples of how we can work together. But these 4 come to mind: boosting PR mentions. Of course, if a client has a nice mention somewhere in coverage, mention press, for instance, you can give it a boost through social ads. Search ads, that will ensure the PR-driven content ranks for key search terms. Probably you're aware, or at least some of you are aware, you don't rank instantly. So if you publish an article on your website, you'll not be on the first position. So kind of using paid search will kind of give you the boost, and you'll be in the first position until organically you rank high enough. Also, this is a close connection with PR, right? Because PR can inform us about their agenda, and we can have all these ads being built and in standby, and as soon as you see the people are searching for those terms, you just click play, and then the adverts start showing. The third one, it's kind of what it says in the tin, right? So you're targeting website visitors. We usually have tracking in place, so we can make sure that if someone is visiting your blog or a specific news piece that you placed on your website, we can follow them up with adverts and kind of reinforce the message. And even more than that, we can kind of try to push them down the funnel. And finally, it's just like a generic one, right? It's all about coordination. So you need to make sure that the message across PR, organic, social and SEO, and paid, it's aligned. So it doesn't matter where people might see you, in the press, on LinkedIn, or Google ad. It feels like it's the same brand, and it has a clear story. Cool, so Like a Girl. I'm not sure if you heard, it was a huge campaign back in 2014. It's a real-life example, probably one of the best examples of a huge campaign. It all started with a powerful PR video that challenged and tried to break the stereotype. It was authentic, bold, caught the attention, and it picked up like almost instantly, basically. Before I'll give you a bit more, I would like you to watch a little video, if this will work. It's like a recap for the campaign.
Okay, so I'm gonna just give you some actions to do. And just do the first thing that comes to mind. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
It's the latest thought-provoking ad that has everyone talking.
I have chills.
It's tapping into a conversation or a debate that's already huge online.
What advice do you have to young girls who are told they run like a girl, kick like a girl, hit like a girl, swim like a girl?
Keep doing it, because it's working. If somebody else says that running like a girl, or kicking like a girl, or shooting like a girl is something that you shouldn't be doing, that's their problem. Because if you're still scoring, and you're still getting to the ball on time, and you're still being first, you're doing it right. Doesn't matter what they say.
Why can't run like a girl also mean win the race?
Because this was basically like a short recap, especially if you don't know the campaign. It's great to see how like a little PR exercise, if you want, a crazy, sparkling idea from a PR became an international, basically, campaign with hits breaking records, and yeah, you'll see in a couple of slides. But before I'll show you the results, we tried to put together some bullet points so you can see how different channels were, if you want, activated at different times. So we know that this idea, this PR activation with this fake casting call was in June 2014. So always invited young women, men and children to act as a girl. You've seen the video, and then obviously you've seen how it ramped up across different channels, different medias. But that's a PR exercise, right? But we know that video was published on YouTube, and that's when the SEO and organic social kicks in. I'm probably 99% sure it was optimized, because when you talk about search engine optimization, well, YouTube is a search engine. So you would optimize, you would probably create a transcript, you'll be sure to have the right keywords in the right places, right? The video was launched, as I mentioned, on YouTube, was directed by Lauren Greenfield, and challenged this negative connotation of like a girl. Then later in June, PR kicked in again, and they secured global coverage, and it was across different media types, probably, if you remember, just seen in the video, different news channels, different newspaper, and so on. Later in July, organic again, so we can see that campaign goes viral. They had over 90 million views, and yeah, they generated a huge media coverage, and probably one of the biggest wins from my perspective was that 96% of them was a positive sentiment in like 3 months or so. Continuing in February 2015, finally paid, right? So it was about time from my perspective. They managed to secure the 60 seconds version of the video at the Super Bowl, which is something huge, especially if you know about Super Bowl and how hard it is to get a spot there and how expensive it is. And also it was the first time a feminine hygiene product was featured in this event. So it was like completely game-changing, basically. More PR work in June 2015, and the campaign received a lot of awards, among them Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity, and including this prestigious Titanium Award and the new Glass Lion Award. And they're recognizing, basically through these awards, the work that addressed gender inequality. And then it continued. It was much more than this, but our last point, it was across platforms, so they didn't just focus on one platform, PR, campaign done. Back to my favorite word, integrated approach, right? The results. finally, the results. So just to highlight how big this was. So they managed to generate over 90 million views, and it was the second most viral globally for that year. 1.1K media features, 4.4 billion impressions in 3 months, tripled the Twitter followers, and again, always not a little brand, quite an established one. They increased their subscribers on YouTube like more than 4,000 times, 177,000 tweets with the hashtag like a girl, and a lot of celebrities got involved at that point and kind of helped with the whole social media strategy, I imagine. The brand preference and purchase intent up by 50%. So you can imagine for a brand like Always, 50% increase in brand preference and purchase intent. That's absolutely huge. And probably the most importantly, that message landed. So a follow-up study found that 70% of women and 60% of men said the video changed how they understood the phrase like a girl. So yes, PR built the story, but also I'll get some credit for paid, because through paid they managed to amplify and have a huge scale and longevity as well, because if you think about 2014, paid kicked in 2015, and then it kept going, so it was over a year-long campaign from this perspective. Clicker. Cool, so you would say like, okay, cool, yes, Mihai, always huge budgets, right? It's easy, hundreds of millions, huge team. Well, we work with Thread, so I can give you a real-life example. Unfortunately, we don't have hundreds of millions budgets, but probably I should start with this. For anyone who doesn't know about Thread, Thread is a global payments processing platform, and just to put it in perspective, they support billion of transactions 24/7 across 44 countries. So every time you go to a shop and you tap your card, they are the guys that are making sure that your transaction went through that little device and to the right bank. So they are in charge with this kind of transactions. And they work with companies similar to Sterling Bank or Revolut or Monzo, just to put it in perspective, right? So they are very well known in their industry. Often, they have PR pieces and a lot of social media buzz. So we work with them to publish these social media posts as adverts. You can see a couple of them there, probably are too tiny, but one of them is from a show, which obviously PR, you can't go to a show without PR. Probably Chloe can tell you more about how much work it is behind attending an event. And this is one of their partners, it's called Zilched. And they posted on social media, and they did a social media post together. So what we do, we take these quality, engaging posts, and then we boost them through paid campaigns. Just to give you an example, these are 6 months worth of data, just to put it in a bit of a perspective. So through organic, those posts, they generated about 12,000 visits, clicks, so people click and then visit to the website. And through sponsored posts, almost another 12K, so kind of one-to-one. More than that, in relation to engagement and reach, through organic, they had over 200,000 impressions, so ads being displayed. Through paid, we pushed this to 3.2 million, and more than that, through paid, we know who we target, so we went very specific to C-suite specialists in the industry, and yeah, it's just another great example of how we can leverage PR and how we can work together, even at a smaller scale. So it's definitely doable. You don't have to have the 100 million budgets. Our kind of final message, so what's the main takeaway from this? Well, we should keep in mind that PR earns attention and builds trust. Organic social will build momentum because you engage with your kind of community, online community, SEO will ensure the content it's discovered over time, so it's kind of, some pieces become evergreen content. So yeah, I told you that SEO plays a role in my integrated approach. And obviously paid media ensures that it reaches the right people, and again, as I said, the right people at the right time. When we get all this working together, then everything kind of becomes an integrated story, and it's not just a moment in time, and it becomes something that drives the brand trust, traffic to your page, engagement, and like real lasting results. I think we move to some more key takeaways.
Yes, I think we've got 5 or 6 key takeaways just as a last point, so thanks, Mihai. First of all, breaking down silos. So whether you already have agency support or if you're in-house and you do a number of these different activities yourself, making sure that you are aligning those activities. If it's agencies, put them in the same room, get them on the same call and do that regularly. The more that they can communicate with each other, the better results you'll see.
So the second key takeaway was coordinating the content and the keywords. So making sure that we're using SEO insights to guide what people are searching for to help make sure we're talking around the right topics. But equally, if we do see that there's a particular interest in a PR article that maybe is a new emerging trend, make sure we are then utilising that data and building an organic strategy off of the back of that. So then when the search data does become readily available and we can look at keyword search volumes, we're already ahead of our competition. We're already ranking in that first position. The third one is making sure that we're leveraging PR for backlinks. So looking for those linking opportunities. Obviously, the brand mentions are great, but if we can shoehorn links in there and making sure that they're on those credible domains is really going to boost that domain authority.
Yeah, the first one will be to keep in mind, amplify your PR content with paid media. So don't let great content just drop off a cliff after you have a bit of buzz. So why not just give it another push? I would recommend plan a budget so you can push top performing PR content on social platforms, not just wait ad hoc and try to map it out across the year. If you have a press release that is getting traction, consider running like a sponsor post. You will highlight all this great news to a very targeted audience. And as an action step, I would say after each big PR campaign, just step back and kind of ask yourself, how can we get this in front of our ideal audience, and work with the pay teams to do a bit of research and find the right niche where you want to boost these posts.
Point number 5, ensure consistent messaging. I talked previously about PR being that connective tissue and really setting that storytelling. Making sure that you're following that through across your organic social, any paid activity, and obviously your SEO is going to be key, and it will drive the best results for you. And then lastly, in terms of measurement, so the really nice example that Mihai gave with Always, great B2C multi-million-pound campaign, and it would be remiss of me to think that all of those integrated elements, such as the SEO, the continual organic, was all planned out from the start, when in reality it definitely wasn't. It started, it was measured as it went along, and then the teams pivoted. They enhanced their spend across those different areas, but they were doing that consistently. I think Mike talked earlier about the importance of letting assets breathe on social. That's very much relevant here. Let your activity breathe, measure and pivot across all the different areas.
I'm going to be talking about influencer campaigns, going to be talking about why some work, why some don't work, and how we can avoid the common pitfalls. But before we get into that, if anyone doesn't know what an influencer is, they can sort of come in all shapes and sizes. So Charli D'Amelio on the left-hand side is a massive TikToker, 155 million followers. She's spun off and created a bunch of her own brands now because of her platform. Kai Cenat is a Twitch streamer, so he goes live every day and averages about 120,000 viewers every time he goes live for about 5 hours, which is numbers that sort of terrestrial TV would die for. KSI, probably one of the largest British influencers that we've ever had, 70 million subscribers across his channels. He's also part of a bigger YouTube group. He's used his platform now to spin off and create his own drinks brand. He does boxing, he does music, his group has just had a new Netflix show. and Yoan Jones, who is on the smaller end of the spectrum but is sort of emerging now. TikToker creates really down-to-earth, relatable content, which has got people really engaged. That's all great, but for some of you in here, if you work more in the B2B space, those last names won't really be important to you at all. But what is interesting is that we've seen a massive rise of B2B influencers. And again, these can take various different shapes and forms. So you've got people like Nick Burnham, who runs Aquaholic, a YouTube channel where he goes on and does tours and reviews of yachts. You've got Ben Taylor, who runs his podcast, also speaking to people that work for yachting companies to tell brand stories and sort of increase their brand profile. You've got people like Walter Isaacson, who runs the Trailblazers podcast for Dell, so he gets down sort of industry leaders and they do thought leadership and they sort of explain how they got to the point that they are in their career. And you've got Brian Harris, who runs a company called Video Fruit. His big sort of claim to fame, really, is that he did a guest blog for a website called OKDork. And on the day that it posted, the website saw a 600% increase in web traffic. So because of his platform, because of who he was, people wanted to go and see what he had to say about certain topics. So OKDork recognized that, asked him to do a guest blog, and they saw their traffic massively increase. This is all great, but actually, why do we need influencers? Are they something that I should be looking at? My answer to that is probably yes. Just looking at these stats here, 75% of people use social media for buying intent, right? So they'll find something on social media that they want to buy, they go off and buy it. Next, you've got 61% of users that trust an influencer's judgment. So if you've got an influencer that can speak on behalf of your brand, on behalf of your product, saying that they love it, 61% of people that watch that are going to be trusting that and going off to buy your product as well. Another one here, which is more interesting, I think, is that 42% of customers online use some form of ad blocking. What this means is if you're doing paid ads or you've put an ad in front of a YouTube video and that's currently circulating, if users have ad blocking on, they'll skip past that, they won't see you at all. However, if you get an influencer to create content for you and they post that on their own platforms, it's much harder to block someone's content unless you block their entire account, so you're much more likely to actually get eyes on your ad. And then finally, 76% of users intended to purchase based on a social media post. So I think the numbers there really speak for themselves. So do we need influencers? Yeah, probably. It's not all sort of sunshine and rainbows, though, because influencer campaigns can and often do go wrong for sort of a number of reasons. So I'm just going to share a few sort of famous examples. Some of these you'll definitely know, some of them you might not. Pepsi decided it was a great idea around the time that the Black Lives Matter movement was really picking up steam to get Kendall Jenner, a white supermodel, to fix relations with the police with a can of Pepsi. I probably don't need to explain why that is problematic and maybe didn't land very well. Obviously, super tone deaf. The timing of it was awful. The message was also meaningless. Like, I don't think anyone saw that advert and afterwards thought that I'm going to be able to fix any real problems with a can of Pepsi. So that didn't land. And also, no brand affinity. They picked Kendall Jenner for the name and the value and the size of her. But actually, when I think of fizzy drinks brands, when I think of Pepsi and Coke, I don't necessarily think of runway models. So there's not really that link there. Pepsi had to take the advert down within 24 hours, and it cost them about 25 million. So, yeah, not ideal. Next up is Shein, and this is a bit more of a recent one. Shein are a fast fashion brand, so obviously everything that comes along with being fast fashion, in terms of the working conditions and maybe who the people are that are doing that work. They thought it would be a great idea to send over 6 influencers to go and do tours of their factories. What they didn't account for is that everyone else knows what goes on behind the scenes of fast fashion companies. So seeing a bunch of influencers talking about how amazing the working conditions are and how impressed they are with everything, the other side of it is people thinking, yeah, but you're sort of ignoring the child labour side of it or the sweatshops. So it's not great. The issues here is obviously massive credibility issues, not transparent at all. And also they picked the wrong influencers, because there is an argument to be made that if you'd picked an influencer that was really active in the fashion space and was always open to starting interesting conversations about the state of the industry, there's an argument that you could have created some nice nuanced content there about the conditions and how they may be helping in another area or whatever it is. That didn't happen. These influencers had no interest or weren't briefed to do that at all. So it just seemed really vapid. Next is L'Oreal. This one is particularly damning. This is a woman called Michaela. She is a makeup influencer, and she did a sponsored post with L'Oreal where she was talking about their new mascara and the amazing effects that it had on like lifting her lashes. What she failed to mention, but what all of her fans mentioned in the comments, was that she was clearly wearing false eyelashes at the time as well. So not great. Obviously, this is super misleading. You're violating the trust of your followers. And I think the most damning bit of this all is that Ardell, the brand who created the false lashes, gained 25,000 followers from it because everyone wanted to know where the lashes were. No one really cared about the mascara. So if you're L'Oreal, you've just paid a lot of money to give your competitors a lot more followers. So that's when they don't work. So what actually does make influencer campaigns work? And I've sort of boiled this down to 4 main ones. The first one being, let your creators create the content that makes sense for them. Don't give them a super over-prescriptive brief that forces them down a hallway that actually doesn't make sense for them. Selecting an influencer that has shared values with your brand. So this sort of goes back to that Kendall Jenner one, right? If you're picking a random influencer just because they've got 50 million subscribers, what does that say about your brand? What can they say about your product? Are any of your followers going to care about who this person is? Probably not. Consistent communication. Make sure that in these influencer campaigns, you're making sure that the messaging is completely in line with everything else you've said before. And also long-term connections in mind. This is one that I think people struggle with quite a lot. They think that because you've got an influencer, you put that one post out and that's it. That's not the case. These things take time to build trust. You need multiple videos with this same influencer because it's very easy to one time say, I love this product, I use it every day. Once that content's out, people will forget about it very quickly. However, if you have the same influencer making content over 4, 6, 8 months, consistently repeating the message that they love this product, it all of a sudden seems a lot more reliable. So, we showed some bad ones, and I want to show a couple good ones. This is a watch brand called Daniel Wellington, and they did a collaboration with an influencer called Kelly Pettit. What's interesting, you get the point. What's interesting about that one is that Daniel Wellington don't put their product massively front and center in that video. It's a small watch that's a really subtle notice. This works for me because it fits in with Kelly Pettit's content normally. Her whole feed is her creating these beautiful cocktails and doing like a bunch of lifestyle content. The watch is just in and out of the frame, but however, it's there enough to make you think, oh, I really like that, where can I go and find it? Interestingly as well, you can see her feed behind here. This sponsored content, this influencer content, doesn't look any different to that. So if you're a follower that doesn't know that it's a branded content, you're just going to think it's another piece. This other one is a couple called Ryan and Sophie Sailing. They are sailors, and they have a YouTube channel where they document their life going around on their various boats and what it's like having life on the water. We got Ray Marine, one of our clients, to pair up with them, sent them some products, did unboxing videos on their YouTube channel. That in itself is fine, but actually we took it a step further, and Ryan and Sophie ended up attending boat shows on behalf of Ray Marine. So instead of it just being a one-off piece of content, it was a bit more of an ambassador role. So you're constantly seeing the same people talking about the product. It just builds up a bit more of trust. So the most common errors with influencer campaigns, I think, really boil down to these 4 here. Number 1 is poor budget allocation. So this can mean one of 2 things, really. One, that you spend way too much money on an influencer and don't get any results back from it. That's obviously failing sort of at the first hurdle. And the second one is spending the money on the influencer, putting the content out, and then not actually spending any money amplifying that content, just letting it do its thing on organic. Organic will only reach a certain amount of people. The net is way smaller compared to it would be if you put some additional spend behind it. So when you're thinking of doing an influencer campaign, think about how much it costs to get them, but then also you should have in the back of your mind, what are we going to be spending to make sure that this content hits the right people? Second, over-prescriptive briefing. This is what I've said before. You need to let the creators use the the skills that got them the platform in the first place. There's no point trying to pigeonhole them. Obviously, make your brief clear, make it obvious what you want from it in the end, whether it's sales, whether it's brand awareness, whatever it is, but let them be creative, let them do what makes them famous. Next is the saturation effect. If you have an influencer that works with every single brand under the sun, eventually their word essentially means nothing. You want to pick your influencers that make sense for your brand. You want to pick influencers that are specific with who they work with so that their word has a bit more weight. And then last one is underdeveloped strategy. So this is going back into that whole thing of, is there much of a use for a one-time piece of content? I'd argue probably not. Are you thinking longer term? Are you thinking how you can create them, you can make them into a brand ambassador? Are you thinking about whether you can have them appearing at shows? Are you thinking about whether they could have TV appearances talking about your brand? If you're not thinking about that, you probably should be. So then we move on to how do we actually measure success, and this is a bit of a tricky one because success to everyone in this room will look different. Whoever you're sat next to's idea of success will be completely different to yours a lot of the time. But it is important to remember that the vanity metrics such as the likes, the shares, the reposts that you normally would go after might not actually tell the full story with an influencer campaign. You know, the post itself might not get that much engagement, it might get 100 likes, but if from that you can get 30 leads, all of a sudden the numbers don't really make that much of a difference because you've got what you've wanted in the end of it. The next one is don't expect an immediate return on investment. This is going back to what I was saying. These things take time to build trust. Don't expect after one post that someone is going to believe every single thing that this influencer is saying and all of a sudden they think your brand is the best thing in the world. Multiple pieces of content, multiple influencers talking about it. Don't expect to get 1,000 leads from the first post. And then this next one is using social listening to understand sort of how your campaign's landing, which influencer you should be working with. Social listening is a great tool because you can sort of just gauge the sentiment online of how people are thinking about your brand, how they're thinking about the people you're thinking of working with. The last thing you want is to pick an influencer having not done any social listening and realize that they've just recently had a massive scandal or there's reasons that people don't want to work with them anymore. Social listening is also really handy after the campaign because you can use it to quite quickly figure out how people felt about the campaign as a whole. If people liked it, if they didn't, if they were particularly clicking with one element of it, but maybe not with the other. Social listening is a great way. So you can use tools like Brandwatch or Dash Hudson to do that for you. So just to sort of round it all off, these are sort of my 5 steps to creating an influencer campaign that works. Step 1, obviously, the same with any campaign, define your KPIs. Decide what you actually want to get out from this. Is it you want to gain 50,000 followers? Is it you want to get 100 leads? Is it you want however many mentions on X or Threads? Decide that clearly at the beginning. Next, this is where you need to start identifying your influencers. Are you going for massive, massive influencers like the Kardashians or Molly Mays, or are you thinking, I'm going to go a bit more micro, getting a smaller influencer that might have a way more dedicated fan base that are more likely to generate you leads. Once you've got the influencers or influencer, deciding on which one you want, develop a brief with them. Like I said earlier, make sure they understand what the product is, make sure they understand what your talking points are, but don't force them down a road to create content that doesn't make sense for them or their followers. Next, this is when you launch, this is when you start to monitor, and this is when you start engaging with people that might be responding to your campaign. That's the easy bit. And then at the end, you need to analyze the results and optimize them. Look at it after the campaign is done. If it didn't work, that's fine. This is all lessons that you can learn for the next time. Use social listening to find out whether people didn't like the influencer you picked. They didn't think that there was any sort of brand synergy there. Whatever it is that doesn't work, fix that. Everything that did work, double up, do it again. Work with bigger influencers, smarter influencers. You do all of these 5 steps, and don't kill me if it doesn't work, but I think you should have a pretty good influencer campaign on your hands. So yeah, that was me. Quick whistle-stop tour on influencer campaigns. And that's it. Q&A with all of us, I guess.